Hello. I'm going to tell a story by Bill Pronzini, Out of the Depths, published in 1994. He came tumbling out of the sea, dark and misshapen, like a being that wasn't human, a creature from the depths, or a Jumbie, the evil spirit of West Indian superstition. These were fanciful thoughts, and Shay was not a fanciful woman. But on this night, this strange, wild night, nothing seemed real or explicable. The squall earlier had left the sea rough, and there were high swells out toward the reef. The moon bathed the beach and rocks in the kind of frost-white shine you found only in the Caribbean. The angry surf threw him onto the beach, then dragged him back again. Another wave flung him out a little farther. She saw now that he was alive. She saw him extend his arms with splayed fingers digging into the sand to hold himself against the backward pull of the sea. Out of the depths, she thought. She looked again to the rocky peninsula farther south, Windflaw Point, where the undertow was the most treacherous on the island. It had taken her almost an hour to marshal her courage to the point where she was ready, almost ready, to walk out there to the tiny beach at Windflaw Point and walk into the ocean, into the depths. Now someone had crawled out of the depths. The irony made her shiver. Clouds moved in front of the moon, and in the darkness Shay could just make him out, now lying motionless on the sand, with the surf foaming around him. Was he unconscious? Dead? She thought, I should go down there. But she could not seem to lift herself out of the chair. After several minutes he moved again, a dark shape rising to his hands and knees, then trying to stand. After 3 attempts he stood, swaying, as if gathering strength. Finally he staggered onto the path that led up through the rocks, toward the house, toward her. On another night she would have felt any number of emotions by this time. Surprise, bewilderment, curiosity, concern. But not on this night. Her mind was numb, just as her body was numb from the cold wind. It was as if she were dreaming, sitting there on the open terrace, as if she'd fallen asleep hours ago. The moon reappeared, and she saw him plodding closer, limping, almost dragging his left leg. A man, of course, not a creature, just a man, and not misshapen. What had made him seem that way was the life jacket fastened around his upper body. Had he gone overboard from a passing ship? Eventually he reached the garden and was heading for the kitchen door. She had left the lights on in there and the blinds open. It was the lights that had drawn him here. A good thing she had left them on. Or was it? She did not want him here. A cast-up stranger, hurt and needing attention? Not on this night. Not when she had been so close to making the walk to Windflaw Point. But she could not refuse him help. John would have, if he'd been drunk and in the wrong mood. Not her. It was not in her nature to be cruel to anyone, except perhaps herself. Abruptly, Shay pushed herself out of the chair. She went inside, hurried through the darkened bedroom, down the hall, and into the kitchen. She was halfway to the door when he began pounding on it. She unlocked and opened the door without hesitation. He was propped against the stucco wall, his body slumped with exhaustion. He spoke in a thick, strained voice. Need some help. Been in the water. Washed up on your beach. She looked at him. I know, I saw you from the terrace. Come inside. He replied, Better get a towel first. Coral ripped a gash in my foot. Don't want blood all over your floor." "All right," she said. She went to fetch a towel, a blanket, and the first aid kit. When she returned, she saw that he had removed the life jacket. His clothes were minimal. Plaid wool shirt, denim trousers, canvas shoes, all nicked and torn by Coral. Around his waist was a waterproof belt with pouches, like a workman's utility belt. One of the pouches bulged slightly. She gave him the towel. He wrapped it around his left foot and hobbled inside. Shay took his arm and let him lean on her as she guided him to the kitchen table. His flesh was cold. The touch of it made her feel a tremor of revulsion. It was like touching the skin of a dead man. He sank heavily onto one of the chairs. Shay dragged over another chair and lifted his injured leg onto it. He stripped off what was left of his shirt and swaddled himself in the blanket. His teeth were chattering. She went to the coffee maker and filled 2 big mugs. There was always hot coffee ready and waiting, no matter what the hour. She made sure of that. She drank too much coffee, much too much. But it was better than drinking what John usually drank. He watched her pour the coffee. "You have any liquor to go with that?" She took down a bottle of Jamaican rum and carried it, with the mugs, over to the table. She watched while he spiked the coffee, drank, then poured more rum and drank again. Color returned to his stubbled cheeks, and he used part of the blanket to rough dry his hair. He was a little older than she, early 30s, and in good physical condition. Broad chest, broad shoulders, muscled arms, and sandy hair. When he lifted his eyes to meet hers, something in them made her turn away. She said, "I'll see what I can do for your foot." Shay unwrapped the towel and carefully removed the shoe, revealing a deep gash across the instep. Blood welled from the cut. "It doesn't look good. You might need a doctor." "No," he said. "No doctor. It'll take stitches to close properly. Just clean and bandage it, okay?" With iodine and a gauze pad, she gently cleaned the gash. The sharp sting made him suck in his breath, but he didn't flinch or utter another sound. She laid a second piece of gauze over the wound and began wrapping tape tightly around his foot. "My name's Tanner," he said. "Harry Tanner." She replied, "Shay Clifford." "Pretty name. So are you. Real pretty with your hair all windblown like that." She glanced up at him. He was smiling at her, not a leer, just a weary smile, but it wasn't a good kind of smile. It had a predatory look, like a wolf baring its teeth. "No offense," he said. She lowered her gaze. "None taken." Her mind was still numb. "What happened to you? Why were you in the water?" He explained. "That damn squall a few hours ago came up so fast I didn't have time to pull down my jib. A wave as big as a house knocked my little ketch into a full breach. I was thrown clear when she went over." "Were you sailing alone?" "Yes, alone." "Single-hander, or just on a weekend lark?" He looked up at her. "Single-hander. You know boats, I see." "Yes," she said, "fairly well." "Well, I'm a sea tramp," said Tanner. 10 years of island hopping, and this is the first time I ever got caught unprepared." "It happens," she said. "What kind of boat was she?" "Bug-eye Catch, 39 feet, the Wanderer." She finished wrapping his foot. "Shame to lose a boat like that." He continued, "Damn lucky I was wearing my life jacket, and lucky you stay up late with your lights on. If it weren't for the lights, I probably wouldn't have made shore." Shay nodded and started to put away the first aid supplies. Tanner asked, You live here alone? With my husband. But he's not here now. Not now. He'll be home soon. Tanner looked at her face. That's so. Where is he? In Merriwing, the town on the far side of the island. He went out for dinner with friends. While you stayed home? I wasn't feeling well earlier. Tanner looked at her hair. Merriwing, he repeated. Salt Key? That's right. This husband of yours, how big is he? How big? Big enough so his clothes would fit me? Oh, she said, yes, about your size. Think he'd mind if you let me have a pair of his pants and a shirt and some underwear? These wet things of mine are giving me a chill. No, of course not. I'll get them from his room. Shay went down the hall to John's bedroom. In haste, she grabbed a pair of trousers and a pullover from his closet, then turned to the dresser. She stopped in mid-stride. Tanner stood there in the doorway, leaning against the door jamb, his eyes fixed on her. His room, he said. Right? Why did you follow me? Felt like it. So, you don't sleep with him. Why should that concern you? I'm naturally curious. How come? How come you and your husband don't share a bed? Our sleeping arrangements are none of your business. Probably not. Your idea or his? My private affairs, he interrupted, are none of my business, I know. But I also know the signs of a bad marriage when I see them. A bad marriage and an unhappy woman. You can't tell me you're happy. All right, she said. So why not divorce him? Money? Money has nothing to do with it. Money has something to do with everything, he insisted. It's not money. Then why not just dump him? Shay had a sudden and vivid memory of John saying to her, You're not going to divorce me, Shay. Not you. Not like the others. I'll see you dead first. I mean it, Shay. You're mine, and you'll stay mine until I decide I don't want you anymore. She composed herself. I'm not discussing my marriage with you. I don't know you. We can fix that, he replied. I'm an easy guy to know. She found underwear and socks in the dresser and put them on the bed with the trousers and pullover. You can change in here, she said. Then started for the doorway. Tanner didn't move. I said, I heard you, Shay. Mrs. Clifford. Clifford, he said. Then he smiled, the same wolfish smile he'd shown her in the kitchen. Sure, Clifford. Your husband's name wouldn't be John, would it? John Clifford. Shay was silent. I'll bet it is. John Clifford, Clifford Yacht Designs. One of the best marine architects in Miami. Fancy motor sailors and racing boats. A house in Miami Beach. Another on Salt Key. This house. And you're his latest wife. Which is it, number 3 or number 4? Between her teeth, she said, 3. He must be, 50 by now? And worth millions. Don't tell me money's not why you married him. I won't tell you anything. But money was not why she had married him. He had been kind and attentive to her at first. And she had been lonely after the bitter breakup with Neil. John had opened up an exciting new world to her. Traveled to exotic places, sailing, the company of interesting and famous people. She hadn't loved him, but she had been fond of him, and she had convinced herself that in time she would learn to love him. Instead, when he revealed his dark side, she had learned to hate him. Tanner asked, Didn't one of his other wives divorce him for knocking her around when he was drunk? Seems I remember reading something like that in the Miami papers a few years back. That why you're unhappy, Shay? He knock you around when he's drinking? Without answering, she pushed past him into the hallway. He made no attempt to stop her. In the kitchen again, she poured yet another mug of coffee and sat down with it. Even with her coat on, she was still cold. She knew that she ought to be afraid of Harry Tanner, but all she felt inside was a deep weariness. An image of Windflaw Point, the tiny beach with the treacherous undertow, flashed across her mind, and then was gone again. Her courage, or maybe her cowardice, was also gone. She was no longer capable of walking out to the point and letting the sea have her. Not tonight, and probably not ever again. Tanner re-entered the kitchen and stood there, staring at her. He was wearing John's clothes and had found a pair of Reeboks for his feet. In his left hand was the waterproof belt that had been strapped around his waist. "The shirt's a little snug," he said, "but a pretty good fit otherwise. Your husband has nice taste in clothes, in houses, and in women." She sipped her coffee without looking at him. Tanner limped around the table and sat down across from her. When he put the belt next to the bottle of rum, the pouch that bulged made a thunking sound. "He must keep a boat around here. Am I right, Shay?" "Yes." "Where does he keep her?" "At the harbor at Merriwing." "What kind is she?" "A 32-foot sloop, the Carib Princess." Tanner looked at her. "You ever take her out by yourself?" "No. He wouldn't allow it." "But you can handle her, right? You said you know boats. You can pilot that little sloop without any trouble?" Shay looked at him. "Why do you want to know that? Why are you asking so many questions about John's boat?" Tanner's wolfish smile returned. "John's boat, John's house, John's third wife." He laughed. "Are you afraid of me, Shay?" "No." "Not even a little?" "Why? Should I be?" "What do you think?" "I am not afraid of you." "Then how come you lied to me?" "Lied? About what?" "Your old man, John Clifford." "I don't know what you mean. You said he'd be home soon, but he won't be. He's not out with friends, is he? He's not even on the island." She stared silently at the steam rising from her coffee. "Well, Shay, that's the truth, isn't it?" After a few moments, she sighed. "Yes, that's the truth." "Where is he?" "Miami?" She nodded. "Went there on business and left you all by your lonesome." "It isn't the first time," she said. Tanner reached for the bottle of rum. "Might be the last." He poured some rum into his mug, drank, and then smacked his lips. "You want a shot of this?" "No." "Loosen you up a little." "I don't need loosening up." "You might after I tell you the truth about Harry Tanner." "Does that mean you lied to me too?" "Afraid so. But you fessed up. Now it's my turn." Outside in the blackness, rain began pelting down as if pouring from an open faucet. "Listen to that," said Tanner. "Sounds like we're in for a big storm tonight." "What did you lie about?" "Well, let's see. For starters, about how I came to be in the water tonight. My catch didn't sink in the squall. No. The Wanderer is tied up at a dock on St. Thomas. The boat I was on didn't sink either, at least not as far as I know. I jumped overboard not long after the squall hit us." Shay said nothing. If I hadn't jumped overboard, the two guys I was with would have shot me dead. They tried to shoot me in the water, but the boat was pitching like crazy, and they couldn't see me in the dark and the rain. Guess they figured I'd die, or I'd drown even with a life jacket on, or the sharks or barracuda would get me. There was still nothing for her to say. We had a disagreement over money. That's what most things come down to these days. Money. They thought I cheated them out of $20,000 down in Jamaica. And they were right. I did. They both put guns on me before I could do anything. I thought I was a dead man. The squall saved my bacon. Big swell knocked us all off our feet. I managed to scramble up the companionway and go over the side before they recovered. Tanner drank more rum, then continued. I'm not a sea tramp, not a single-hander. That's another thing I lied about. Ask me what I really am, Shay. Ask me how I make my living. I don't need to ask. No? You think you know? Smuggling. You're a smuggler. That's right. Smart lady. Drugs, I suppose. Drugs, weapons, liquor, people, you name it, I've handled it. Hell, smuggling's a tradition in these waters. Men have been doing it for hundreds of years. I'm a modern pirate, that's what I am. Yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum. Why are you telling me all of this? Why not? Don't you find it interesting? No. All right, I'll give it to you straight. I have a problem, a big problem. I jumped off that ketch tonight with one thing besides the clothes on my back, and it wasn't money. He dragged the waterproof belt toward him, unsnapped the pouch that bulged, and showed her what was inside. She gazed at the weapon, a high-caliber automatic with a lightweight frame. She was not surprised. She knew there was a gun in the pouch when it made the thunking sound. He put the gun on the table within easy reach. I need to get off this island. But my money and passport are both on that damn ketch. You see my dilemma, Shay. I see it. Tanner's predatory grin returned. Well, I've got a solution. A dandy. Here's what we're going to do. In the morning, we'll drive to the harbor. Once we get there, we go on board the sloop, and you take her out. If anybody you know sees us and says anything, you tell them I'm a friend. And you tell them John said it was okay for us to go for a sail without him. Then what? Once we're at sea, I'm not going to kill you and dump your body overboard, if that's what you're worried about. We just sail the Carib Princess to Florida, a little place I know on the west coast, up near Pavilion Key. And then? Then I call your husband and we do some business. How much do you think he'll pay to get his wife and his sloop back safe and sound? 500,000? $1 million? My God, she said, you're crazy. You could never get away with it. I figure I can. What? You think he won't pay because your marriage is on the rocks? You're wrong, Shay. He'll pay all right. He's the kind that can't stand losing anything that belongs to him, wife or boat. And sure as hell not both at once. And when old John pays off, I'll leave you with the sloop. You can sail her back to Miami, okay? Give you my word on that. She knew he was lying. His word was worthless. He had told her his name and the name of his catch and where it was berthed. He would never leave her alive to identify him. Not on the Florida coast. Not even here. The rain came again, driven by wind with enough force to rattle the windows. Shay saw that her coffee mug was empty. She went to the counter and refilled it. Tanner sat there, relaxed, smiling, pleased with himself. Gonna be a long, wet night, Shay. Where do you sleep? The question sent a spasm through her body. Your bedroom. Where is it? Oh, God, she thought. Why? I told you. It's going to be a long night, and I'm tired, and my foot hurts, and I want to lie down. But I don't want to lie down alone. We might as well start getting to know each other. The best way there is... No, she thought. No, no, no. Well, Shay, lead the way. No, she thought again. She walked back to the table. Tanner sat forward as she walked past him and started to lift himself from the chair. She threw the mug of hot coffee into his face. She hadn't planned to do it. She acted without thinking. It was almost as much of a surprise to her as it was to him. He screamed and pawed at his eyes. His body jerked so violently that he toppled over sideways. Shay swept the automatic off the table and backed away with the gun extended at arm's length. Tanner kicked away the chair and scrambled unsteadily to his feet. Bright red splotches stained his cheeks where the coffee had scalded him. His eyes were murderous. He took a step toward her, then stopped when he realized she was pointing his own weapon at him. He struggled to regain control of himself. You shouldn't have done that, Shay. Stay where you are. That gun isn't loaded. It's loaded. I know guns, too. You won't shoot me. He took another step. I will. Don't come any closer. No, you won't. You're not the type. I could pull the trigger on a person real easy. Have more than once. He took another step. But not you. You don't have what it takes. Please don't make me shoot you. Please. Please don't. See, you won't do it because you can't. Please. You won't shoot me, Shay. On another night, any other night, he would have been right. But on this night, he lunged at her, and she shot him. The impact of the high-caliber bullet stopped him cold. A look of astonishment spread over his face. He took one last convulsive step before his hands clutched at his chest and his knees buckled. Shay turned away as he fell. When she looked again, after several seconds, he lay face down on the floor. He wasn't moving. She didn't need to go any closer to tell that he was dead. There was a hollow queasiness in her stomach. Otherwise, she felt nothing. She went into the living room and sat on one of the chairs. She would have wept then, but she had no tears. She had cried herself dry on the terrace. After a while, she became aware that she still gripped Tanner's automatic. The numbness was finally leaving her mind, and she began to focus. She stood and walked slowly down the hall to her bedroom. She steeled herself as she opened the door and turned on the lights. From where John lay sprawled across the bed, his sightless eyes stared up at her. The stain of blood on his bare chest, drying now, gleamed darkly in the glow of the lamp. Wild night, mad night. She had been through hell not just once. She had been through it twice. First in here, then in the kitchen. But she hadn't shot John. She hadn't. He had come home around 9, already drunk, and wanted to make love to her. When she denied him, he slapped her and kept slapping her. After 3 long, hellish years, she couldn't take it anymore. Not anymore. She had managed to get the revolver out of her nightstand drawer, not to shoot him, just as a threat to make him leave her alone. But he had lunged at her in almost the same way Tanner had, and they had struggled, and the gun had gone off, and John Clifford was dead. She had started to call the police, but she stopped because she knew they would never believe it was an accident. John was well liked and highly respected on Salt Key. No one, not even his close friends, believed he could mistreat anyone. And there were no marks on her body to prove his abuse. He was always careful not to leave marks. The island police would surely have claimed that she had killed him in cold blood. She would have been arrested and tried and convicted and put in a prison far worse than the one in which she had lived for the past 3 years. The prospect of that was unbearable. That is what had driven her out onto the terrace to sit and think about the undertow at Windflaw Point. In those moments, the sea had seemed to be her only way out. Now there was another way. Her revolver lay on the floor where it had fallen. John had given it to her when they were first married because he was away so much, and he had taught her how to use it. It was one of 3 handguns he had bought illegally in Miami. Shay picked it up, and with the corner of the bedsheet, she carefully wiped the grip. Then she did the same to Tanner's automatic. She was certain that that gun also would not be registered anywhere. She put the automatic in John's hand, closing his fingers around it. Then she retreated to the kitchen and knelt to put the revolver in Tanner's hand. Soon she would talk to the chief constable at Merriwing and explain what had happened. "John and I tried to help Tanner," she would say, "but he repaid our kindness by trying to rob us at gunpoint. John told him we kept money in the bedroom, and John took the gun out of the nightstand before I could stop him. They shot each other. John died instantly. Tanner didn't believe his wound was as serious as it was. He made me bandage it and kept me in the kitchen, threatening to kill me too. I managed to catch him off guard and throw coffee in his face. When he tried to come after me, the strain aggravated his wound, and he collapsed and died." If this were Miami, she could never get away with such a story. But here, the local police were unsophisticated and inexperienced because there was so little crime on Salt Key. They were much more likely to overlook the fact that John was shot 2.5 hours before Harry Tanner, and much more likely to accept a double homicide involving a stranger than the accidental shooting of a respected resident who was abusing his wife, and much more likely to believe her story after they investigated Tanner's background. Yes, she might just get away with it. And if there were any justice left for her in this world, she would. And one day she would leave Salt Key as a free woman. Out of the depths, she thought as she picked up the phone. Out of the depths.